This presentation is about Module 3 of the subject Construction Management and Safety Engineering of the 5th semester Diploma Civil Engineering program. Presentations are done based on the syllabus of the Diploma Civil Engineering program and the book written by me on this subject based on the syllabus. The presentations are confined within the syllabus. The third module consists of the management of human resource, stores and the equipments. This is presented in 3 parts, and the first part deals with the human resource management, second part deals with the stores management or the inventory management, and the third part is about the different equipments used in construction projects and their management. The content of the first part of this presentation includes the sources of human resource development and the methods to improve the productivity, and finally the labor welfare measures and the role of the trade unions in the industry. This part of the program deals with the human resource management. So let us discuss what is the importance of human resource. Construction is a highly labor intensive activity. Approximately 40% of the project cost is for human resource or the cost of the labors. And that is why human resource management is very important, especially in a construction project. And another reason is managing other resources like material, machinery or money is comparatively easy because human resource is a resource with feelings and emotions. Hence it is very difficult to manage human resource. There are many philosophies regarding the human resource management. Another importance of human resource is that the productivity is directly related to human resource. Only by improving the productivity, we can improve the profitability. So, managing the human resource is very vital in any construction project. There are different sources for obtaining human resource. Finding the right person for the right job is the important factor. So, the first source is from campus, directly recruiting the human resource from the campus through campus recruitment. Second one is from open market by giving advertisement in media or newspapers. The third source is from the data bank like the government employment exchanges and other private employment exchanges who provide the data bank of employees required based on their qualifications, skills and so on. And the third source for the human resource is through internal promotion. The people who are working in the lower cadre, if they are found suitable, they can be promoted to the higher posts. And the fifth source is from the opponents. This is mainly adopted in private sector, that is recruiting employees who are already employed with the opponents. So each method is adopted for a specific purpose and depending upon the category of employee. This part of the program deals with the human resource management. So let us discuss what is the importance of human resource. Construction is a highly labor intensive activity. Approximately 40% of the project cost is for human resource or the cost of the labors. And that is why human resource management is very important, especially in a construction project. And another reason is managing other resources like material, machinery or money is comparatively easy because human resource is a resource with feelings and emotions. Hence it is very difficult to manage human resource. There are many philosophies regarding the human resource management. Another importance of human resource is that the productivity is directly related to human resource. Only by improving the productivity, we can improve the profitability. So, managing the human resource is very vital in any construction project. There are different sources for obtaining human resource. Finding the right person for the right job is the important factor. So the first source is from campus, directly recruiting the human resource from the campus through campus recruitment. Second one is from open market by giving advertisement in media or newspapers. The third source is from the data bank like the government employment exchanges and other private employment exchanges who provide the data bank of employees required based on their qualifications, skills, and so on. And the third source for the human resource is through internal promotion. The people who are working in the lower cadre, if they are found suitable, they can be promoted to the higher posts. And the fifth source is from the opponents. This is mainly adopted in private sector, that is recruiting employees who are already employed with the opponents. So each method is adopted for a specific purpose and depending upon the category of employee. Campus recruitment is adopted for employing freshers without experience. The main advantage is that we can get young minds and they can be trained according to the requirement of the organization. It is very difficult to train the people who are already experienced because they will have their own mindset. But by recruiting freshers from campus, we can get competent candidates and they can be trained to the needs of the industry. So when we require experienced candidates, we prefer to select from open market by advertisement or by collecting their personal data from appropriate data bank. So by recruiting experienced persons, we can employ them at middle managerial level or at higher levels. Internal promotion is a sort of motivation. So we were knowing about the candidate for a quite long time and we know their strengths and weaknesses, their character integrity, their capabilities and so on. So eligible candidates who are now working at the lower level can be promoted to higher positions. So this will be a motivating factor for their performance. Recruiting from opponents is mainly adopted where there is very stiff competitions, especially in mobile phone sectors or insurance sectors where there are a number of players. Organizations prefer to recruit candidates from their opponents. This has got two advantages. By inducting very efficient employees from opponents, the strength of the opponent will be decreasing. At the same time, when we get efficient people from opponents, our strength is increased. So this has got a dual advantage in the aspect of competition. But there are also some limitations in this process because they will be switching very frequently from one organization to another based on the benefits in terms of monetary benefits as well as other perks they obtain. Once we recruit them in our organization and train them, then after a few months or a few years, they will show the same character of switching the organization. So each method is adopted depending upon the requirements of the skills, knowledge, experience, etc. The ultimate goal of any industry is to increase the productivity and thereby increase the profitability. For increasing the productivity through labor involvement, we have to bring out the best in the employees. The process of bringing out the best in the employees is a process called motivation. By motivating the employees, we can increase the productivity. We can increase their outturn by suitably adopting different motivation techniques. By motivation, the organization get the benefit of increased productivity. At the same time, the employees get a sort of self-satisfaction. They are morally boosted by the motivation techniques. Generally, different types of incentives are given to employees as a motivation. Different techniques are there for motivating the employees. Job enlargement is also a technique of motivation. Job enrichment is a technique for motivation. Providing incentives is also a mode of motivation. At the first, I mentioned about job enlargement as the means for motivation. This is applicable to only certain types of people who prefer to further progress in their career. Such people, when they are given more responsibilities, more work, they are self-motivated because of the acknowledgement by the organization. They have a feeling that they are given high responsibilities, maybe without any monetary benefit, in recognition to their capabilities. Hence, job enlargement can also be adopted as a means for motivation in certain cases. So next method is job enrichment, making their job more enjoyable. For example, a secretary who was doing typing in a conventional typewriting machine, when he or she was given a computer, it is a job enrichment. When an employee is given a vehicle for traveling, it is a means for job enrichment. When the employees are served with refreshment during intervals, it is a method of motivation, making their job more enjoyable. That is also a means for motivation. Generally, in industries, they adopt different types of incentives as a means for motivation, mainly based on the productivity. During overtime, when the employees produce more products, they are given incentives. Bonus is one incentive. Generally, bonus is linked with productivity. Productivity linked bonus, overtime incentives, etc. are incentives which are given for motivating the employees to increase the productivity. So designing the incentives is very important. The same type of incentive may not be suitable for all categories of employees. The incentives which are given to a laborer may not work with the motivation of an manager. So depending upon the category of the employee, the HR department has to design the incentives. In marketing department, the target achieved by the marketing people will be rewarded. In life insurance corporation, they give incentives based on the targets as a membership to elite clubs. So the method of giving incentive depends on the category of the employees. In certain organizations, a tour program will be conducted when certain levels of productivity or targets are achieved. So there is a general saying about getting the work done by a donkey, which is known as carrot and stick theory. We can motivate a donkey to walk fast by showing a carrot in front of the donkey so that the donkey will move fast with the impression of getting the carrot, with the motivation of eating the carrot. Another method is coercion or compelling the donkey to move fast by hitting with a stick. So the second function cannot be adopted as far as human resource is concerned. Coercion or threatening the employees to increase the productivity cannot be adopted in the present scenario. So we have to adopt the carrot theory, that is giving incentives to the employee to get motivated to bring out the best in them. However, unethical means of motivating the employees should not be encouraged. In many of the construction projects, the employees or the workers in the lower cadre are sometimes offered alcohol to increase their productivity. Especially during the main concreting days, some of the contractors offer alcohols to the employees to improve the productivity, which is very unethical. Exploiting the employees to increase the productivity is an unethical method of increasing the productivity. In this slide, we discuss about various labor welfare measures in our country. The very common labor welfare measure is Employees Provident Fund or the EPF. There will be employees' contribution as well as employers' contributions to the Provident Fund. In EPF, the pension is met from the EPF fund. A portion of the Provident Fund will be given as cash at the end of their service, and the portion which is withheld will be used for giving pension to the employee in the long run. And another labor welfare measure is the pension. Especially pension is adopted in government departments. It is a social security system provided for the government employees. Generally, pension is referred as deferred wages. Deferred wages means the wages which are withheld from the employee for the purpose of providing the pension. And such pension schemes are called statutory pension, which is coming to an end nowadays. Even in government departments, the statutory pension is being converted into contributory pension. That is, a corpus fund is raised by contribution by the employee as well as the contribution from the government. And that fund will be utilized in some of the development activities of the country, and the pension is given from the profits earned through spending this fund. Another labor welfare measure is death cum retirement gratuity. So in the event an employee dies during his service, a gratuity will be provided based on the number of years the employee has spent in the organization. And if the employee completes the service and enters a retirement period, the death cum retirement benefit is given at the end of the service. So this is a social commitment of the organization to the employee who may be dying during the service or retire at the superannuation. Another labor welfare measure is providing soft loans. Many organizations provide soft loan for housing of the employees. House loans, vehicle loans, computer loans, loans for the education of their children, etc. are provided by organizations at a lower interest rate than what it is prevailing in the banks. Then another labor welfare measure is providing safety gadgets. Wherever safety gadgets are required, the organization considers that as the responsibility of the organization to provide such gadgets. Special type of gadgets are provided in heavy industries at a very concessional rate or free of cost as a labor welfare measure. Special types of shoes are provided in heavy industries with metal toe covering, etc. etc. Then medical and maternity leaves. The medical expenses of the employees are reimbursed by the organization, and the women employees are granted maternity leave with full salary. Medical reimbursement is a labor welfare measure. In certain organizations, the medical expenses of the whole family is reimbursed by the organization. Insurances of various kinds, personal insurance, accident insurance, group insurance, etc. are provided by the organization at a very low premium. In certain organizations, such premium is paid by the organization. Then educational facility for the children, either as a monetary benefit or in certain organizations, the organization themselves conduct educational institutions like schools, and the children are given free education. Subsidized food is provided in most of the large organizations. During the working time, the employees are provided with food at a very subsidized rate. Next facility provided is the canteen facility for the households, materials, groceries, and so on. Many large organizations have their own canteen for providing these households or the groceries or stationaries, whatever the employee needs. You might have been aware of the military canteen working in our country. Not only the persons who are working in the military get the benefit, but also the retired persons are also entitled to get the canteen facility at a very subsidized rate. Generally, the items which are sold in the canteen are free from excise duty, and hence the price of such commodities will be much lesser than what it is prevailing in the open market. And various other types of labor welfare measures also exist in different organizations. Certain organizations take care of the health of the employees and give some food items like milk, etc. every day. All these are the various kinds of labor welfare measures. Some organizations consider trade unions as their enemy, but in fact, a trade union is essential in an organization due to the following reasons. They have a definite role to play. Trade unions are concerned with not only the rights of the employees, but also the responsibilities of the employees towards the organization. So let us discuss what are the role played by the trade unions in an organization. So the first and foremost responsibility of the trade union is the well-being of the employees and the smooth functioning of the organization. They should be able to balance both these aspects, well-being of the employee as well as the smooth functioning of the organization, because only when the organization is doing well, the employee has an opportunity to work in that organization. Next responsibility is to act as a watchdog in the industry. When some unethical things are happening in the industry, or some policy decisions are taken by the management or the government which is against the interest of the industry or the laborers, the trade union should take up such things, such policies with the government and act as a forcing agency which can rectify such unethical or undesirable decisions by the management or the government. And next important responsibility is to ensure the well-being of the employees. Not only their wages, but their well-being should be the primary objective of the trade union. the overall well-being of the employee, the health of the employee, the financial status of the employee, the social status of the employee, all should be ensured by the trade unions. And another important function of the trade union is to negotiate with the management for the labor rights, their privileges, their wages, etc. During the time of each wage revision, the HR department of the organization or the management representatives hold negotiations with the labor unions and come to a balanced agreement, and generally they sign for an agreement for 3 years or 5 years regarding the wages pattern, the duties and responsibility of the employees, and so on. And another important responsibility of the trade union is upkeeping the discipline among employees. The trade union leaders should discharge the responsibility of the leader, or the trade unions should discharge their responsibility to upkeep the discipline in the organization through the disciplined employees. Ensuring the safety of the workplace is also the responsibility of the trade unions. Educating the employees about the safety practices, enforcing the safety guidelines, all these are the responsibility of the trade unions. Next responsibility is to cooperate with the organization in implementing the changes. Whenever any change is implemented in an organization, there will be stiff resistance from the employees. Sometimes the changes are inevitable. The changes may be for the progress of the organization. Even then, there may be some resistance. Under such situations, the trade unions should ensure that the changes are implemented very smoothly. The trade unions should act as a change agent between the management and the employees and ensure that changes take place very smoothly. Training of the employees or skilling the employees are also sometimes taken up by the trade unions. Some kinds of training are provided by the industry or the organizations. In certain cases, the organizations themselves entrust the training responsibility with the trade unions so that the employees are taken into confidence. And at a larger perspective, the responsibility of the trade union is to advise the government in making legislations, labor welfare policies, industrial policies, and so on. Many a time, the trade unions have played their role in ensuring gender equity, safety of the women at workplace, the safety of the employees, and so on. Then, last not but the least, responsibility of the trade unions is to develop a brotherhood among employees. The coexistence of the employees is very important. A universal brotherhood attitude should be created among the employees. So this is very important to ensure a good work culture in the organization. As I told you in the beginning, these presentations are based on the Revision 2015 curriculum of the Diploma Program in Civil Engineering and the book authored by me, strictly based on the syllabus. So the presentations are confined to the syllabus and the descriptions given in my book. So thank you very much. This is the first part of the third module. The module 1 and module 2 were presented in Malayalam. Since the students have to write the examination in English, I thought that further presentations shall be made in English. I have tried my best to present in simple terms. Hope everyone has understood this presentation. Thank you.